Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Espuelas, and I'm the Director of Storytelling and Family Outreach at FAM, Families Against Mandatory Minimums. And I am really excited about our Heart to Heart tonight. We've been doing these monthly Heart to Heart that are focused on our Free to Succeed program, which is all around second chances and our second chances agenda. And we've been doing monthly shows since that program launched in September. And I'm really excited and honored and a little nervous tonight because we've got two advocacy powerhouses with us. Like, these people are just amazing. I mean, you guys are where it's at in terms of second chances, and you are both just such good examples of what people can do after time in prison if they get a second chance and just taking the ball and running with it. And I know both of you are very, very busy people too. So I really thank you on behalf of FAM and everybody watching for taking this time, because I know a lot of people want your time and attention. So I wanted to start by saying, again, like we say at the top of every one of these shows, that this is about second chances. And when FAM talks about second chances, what we mean is people getting clemency from their state governor or from the president. And people getting compassionate release, again, on the federal level or in the states, and people getting second chances from sentencing reform. A law is changed or added, or something happens, something is reformed, so somebody gets out early, gets some relief. So both of these people here tonight have gotten second chances. And before we get into that, can you guys just give a little introduction of yourself? I know I won't do it justice. Lynn, how about if we start with you? What is your job, and how are you working as an advocate right now?
Okay, my name is Lynn Espejo, and I live in Arkansas, and I believe in second chances for everyone, and I do my best to help other women and men learn what their second chance might be. I work to try to free individuals from prison and to bring attention to things that need to be changed in our criminal justice system. So I am a criminal justice advocate.
And what happened? Something pretty amazing happened in April of 2021, right? Was it April? You got your master's degree.
Oh, yes, I did graduate with my master's in mental health counseling. It was actually clinical and mental health counseling. Yes.
So that's pretty great. Wow. And that was after you got your second chance in January of that year, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, Marlon, how about you? What are you doing now? The list is long.
It is, and so I'll be brief though. My name is Marlon Chamberlain. I am the campaign manager of the Fully Free campaign here in Chicago, Illinois. The Fully Free campaign is a statewide, multi-year campaign with the goal of ending permanent punishment laws. And again, on the theme of second chances, what we're attempting to do is to eliminate the laws that continue to punish people after they finish serving their time. And so we want to create opportunities and remove the barriers so that people can move on with life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And where do you live, Marlon?
I am currently in Chicago, Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Is that where you grew up?
I did. Born and raised.
That's what I thought.
Fan.
That's what I thought. All right. So now we know a little bit about you. Let's get to the tougher stuff. So my first question, some of people in the audience may notice the format is a little different now. We've decided to sort of structure it more around the 4 questions. So question number 1 is, what was your second chance? So Lynn, let's start with you again. What was your second chance? What was it? How did you hear it even existed? How did you apply for it? That sort of thing. What was your situation? How long had you been behind bars at that time, or in a halfway on home confinement, that sort of thing?
Well, and honestly, I feel like I got 3 second chances, if that makes sense. Because in March of 27th of 2020, President Donald Trump enacted what we know as the CARES Act. And I was at the Federal Transfer Center in Oklahoma City, and they were not equipped really to let us out on the CARES Act, or so they said. And I used the admin remedy process that prisoners are allowed to use, and I requested to be released on the CARES Act. And I was the only woman that I'm aware of that was released on the CARES Act from Oklahoma. And I'll just remember that day driving away, looking back, thinking of all the people I left behind. And as my husband drove away, it was very surreal. However, that was not my only second chance, because on January the 27th in 2021, my pro se motion for compassionate release was granted, and I got another second chance.
Wow.
At the moment, I was in the Pulaski County Jail because, unfortunately, I didn't realize communicating with women I left behind was going to get me violated from the CARES Act. But prior to being violated, I had filed for compassionate release with my judge. And while I was sitting in the county jail, she did grant my motion. But honestly, I feel like I got a second chance this past year in July the 12th of 22. Because again, I filed a pro se motion, this time for early release of supervision after I had served one of my 3 years that was court ordered. And I was able to use the year rule. After a year, you can ask to be granted early termination of your supervised release. And I was able to use that. And I was also given that opportunity. So I feel like that I've really been blessed with second chances. And I feel like everyone should know that there's things out there you can apply for. And, you know, the worst that can happen is someone can tell you no. So never give up, never fear, you know, requesting to do something or asking for something that is in policy or is in law, because those things are put into place so that people can get their second chance.
So true. So when you were in prison, though, did you know about compassionate release?
I did. I was someone who was a really well-known policy person. So I studied BOP policy. And when the First Step Act I passed in December of 18, when Donald Trump signed that into law, I read all 200 and something pages of it, and I learned everything there was to do with the First Step Act. So I learned how to help people that I was in prison with apply for the elder release, to get compassionate release for medical reasons, but also, you know, to get compassionate release for the extraordinary and compelling reasons, such as the way I applied. So I learned everything there was about it. And I just encourage people to read. I know FAM has a great, what I would call a cheat sheet on the compassionate release. And I would definitely encourage people to go and read that and just understand your rights. And if you don't know, ask someone, you know, an advocate or someone that's out here pushing for these things to help you, because I often help people with those kinds of questions.
Did you have a lawyer helping you?
I did not. I did it myself. All of those things, because of learning policy and becoming familiar with my own rights, I was able to use those policies. Like I said, at Oklahoma, I know I was the only woman released on the CARES Act because they just said they weren't equipped to release us, and I just wasn't having it. I was like, no, my rights are to get this. And so admin remedy. Then whenever, you know, like I said, I was on an ankle monitor under the CARES Act, and I decided that, hey, you know, I need to finish my master's, and I'm just going to ask. My judge can say no, but if she says no, okay, that's fine. But if I don't ask, she can't say yes.
So back up a second, because I know there are family members who are, some of them are real new to this, and they might not understand everything you're saying. Like, what is an admin remedy?
Administrative remedy is something that prisoners have a right to file, often referred to as BP-8s, BP-9s, BP-10s, and BP-11s. There is a BOP program statement on the administrative remedy. and I can, gladly post it on my Inside the Walls and Beyond page. I think it is already there. But it is a mechanism that prisoners can use to either file a grievance or to ask for something specific, and you can keep moving up the chain from the institution you're at to the regional level up to the central office, which is Washington, D.C. level within the BOP. And then the way it works with compassionate release, if you are denied either at the institution level or any of the other levels, if you're denied, or if 30 days passes and you are unable to get an answer from the Bureau of Prisons, you can actually go to court like I did and request it from your judge. You do have to request it first through your warden in writing through the institution, and you do have to wait either for an answer of no or the 30 days to pass before filing with court.
Lynn, that's such a good explanation. I think somebody from FAM is posting in the comments right now how to find our page about compassionate release, which goes into more detail, but that's a great explanation. And I'm so happy for you. That's an amazing turn of events. You did get 3 chances.
Thank you. Hey, listen, if their family is sick in prison, compassionate release is another option to try to get.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. Marlon, talk about you. What was your second chance?
So my second chance, in 2002, I was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for a drug conspiracy. And in 2010, my second chance came about as a result of the passing of the Fair Sentencing Act, which changed the ratio between crack and cocaine.
From what to what?
I think it was from 100 to 1 to 18 to 1. And as a result, when it was made retroactive in 2010, I received a sentence reduction from 20 to 14 years.
And at that point, I'm sorry, how many years had you done?
I had been incarcerated at that point 7 years.
7 years, and you went down from 20 to 14. Did that information just come to you, or did you have to ask about it?
No, so I had, from the point of when I was initially incarcerated, I subscribed to FAM. I received newsletters. So I had been following FAM for years. And it's funny because in prison, a lot of people didn't want to hear about what could happen. But I was the complete opposite. Like, I lived and breathed on like waiting for newsletters, and I loved to hear some of the advocacy that was happening on our behalf. And a couple things happened from me sort of subscribing to FAM. This also created an opportunity for me to do the work that I do now, because this was the first time for me seeing people who had been incarcerated and the families of people who had been incarcerated actually leading the advocacy work. So that was very inspiring for me.
I love to hear that. I really love to hear that. I also think from what you just said and the name of the game you both are saying is know your stuff, like get smart, in and out of prison. You got to know. You got to know what you're due and what you're not due. And you have to know these things. That's great. Be your own advocate. That's great, Marlon. Okay, so you went from 20 to 14, then you got out, and so your second chance was because of sentencing reform.
Yeah.
Okay. And now the Equal Act is out, up in the air what's going to happen, but we're hoping that it passes and goes from 18 to 1 down to equal.
Yeah. I always say the only difference between crack and cocaine is baking soda. It's the only difference.
Is what?
It's baking soda.
Baking soda. Yes. Yeah. It seems like a kind of a no-brainer, but it's been a hard push.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's the first question. The second question number 2, Lynn, back to you, is what has your second chance meant to you?
I would say the most important thing my second chance has meant to me is reconnecting with my family. My family, my husband, my children, my French bulldog, they're everything to me. I no longer have to miss important events in their life or hear about them in a visiting room or over the telephone or through a Corelink's email. I can actually be here for those events. You know, I was able to get my master's degree, finish that. I feel like that, you know, because I'm free now, I'm able to advocate and help others. I'm able to speak out and be an advocate. It meant that I didn't have to miss monumental events any longer. You know, I missed my youngest son's high school senior year, his high school graduation. I missed my middle son's college graduation and even his wedding. And those were really sad days for me because I had to miss those events, and I just don't actually have the same memories that my family has.
Yeah.
It also meant that I got home 5.5 months early. And our other French bulldog, Olivia, one of our very prized family members, she was very ill. She developed Cushing's disease while I was in prison. And those last 4.5 months of her life, I was able to be back home with her and to take care of her. And I was there with her and my husband the day that we had to make the hard decision to let her go, to put her to sleep. And had I not gotten out on the CARES Act, I wouldn't have been there that day. And that would have been another tragic, you know, something I missed that would always haunt you.
Yeah.
I think because I'm free now to make memories again with my family, to be free to worship at my church and be involved in my church. I work with the homeless. I do a lot of charity type things. And I feel like that I'm free to do those again. But honestly, and most importantly, to me, I feel like my second chance means, again, that I'm free to help others that I left behind because I made promises to those people that I would never forget about them. And I'm able, like I said, to speak out and to try to bring about changes that need to happen in our criminal justice system in this country. So family, advocacy, being there for others, those are all important things that my second chance has allowed me to do.
So now that you're out, I'm thinking about, especially what you just said about the women you left behind. Is there somebody in particular you're thinking about who you are especially? I know you advocate for a ton of women in prison, but like, give us an example of one person and how you're helping her now.
Well, I left behind a very important person to me that I met in prison. She was what we call our bunkie, meaning that she was on the top bunk, I was on the lower bunk. So we shared a connected set of beds. And her name is Rhonda. And I called her my little sister in prison, and she became very close to me. And currently, I'm trying to help her with her clemency paperwork so that hopefully she can receive her second chance, because she's serving 13 years, long sentence on a drug charge. And she needs her second chance. So, you know, and I left a lot of women behind that I've helped since I've been home, but she's the one, I guess, that's the heaviest on my heart at the moment.
Oh, she's lucky to have you. Okay, Marlon, how about you? What has your second chance meant to you?
So similar to Lynn, my second chance has meant a couple things. One, freedom and agency over my time again. Having an opportunity to invest my time in ways that I want to invest my time. It also means like I've learned to really value relationships and just the relationships that I built in the inside that we continue to build upon. Like now that we're all out, and a lot of those individuals are involved in this work, whether it's here in Illinois or in different states. And so I value those relationships, and I value my time. And of course, I value the opportunity to really spend time with my family. When I was incarcerated in 2006, I lost my mother and 5 relatives in 1 year. and I wasn't able to attend any of the funerals. And so having to really live with the regret of knowing that because of a mistake that I made, that I wasn't allowed to participate and even just say my last like goodbyes to my family members is something that motivated me to get myself together while I was incarcerated. And so it's almost like what my second chance has meant to me is that while I was inside, I was preparing myself. So that was like the practice field, like everything that I was doing and learning. Like now, my second chance is giving me an opportunity to apply what I've learned. So it went from me saying I value my time and I value relationships to now I get a chance to demonstrate that like out here in the real world. So now all of these different skills and concepts that I learned, I was able to put them into practice. And so that's what this second chance has meant to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. So I got a question, picturing you out on the practice field, as you said. I love the way you said that. Are there a lot of guys you left behind with the same attitude who are doing the same kind of work and transformation?
Absolutely. And I would say a lot of the men that I served time with are the reason I am who I am today. Like there were people who mentored me and really showed me how you build like these habits of waking up and reading and exercising. Like these were the same men that we've sort of just transferred those same skills into the work that we do now. So we're constantly reading and studying and talking to each other about what are some of the best practices and laws that's changed in this state, and how can we apply what we've learned over here, or what are the lessons learned from campaigns that maybe they weren't as successful or they were successful. Yeah. So we've carried that same energy and those routines now out here on the outside.
Mm-hmm. That's so encouraging and interesting, and also just makes me it's also so heartbreaking, because it really paints a picture of the waste behind the waste of life and positivity of life force behind bars. It's really, tragic, because I'm sure a lot of those people who mentored you are still behind bars, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great answers. So number 3, now I want, for the next 2 questions, take the focus away from yourselves, and I want you to sort of put yourself in other people's shoes, because this is an important part of the reason FAM is pushing for second chances and thinks they're such a good idea. So, and I think the answer is pretty clear from what you both have said, but so what has your second chance, Lynn, meant to your family? And if you know specifics, like things that your kids might have said to you or your husband might have said to you, what has it meant, not just to you, but to them?
And I think the easiest way for me to start answering that question is to actually quote my husband, Poncho. Mm-hmm. He told me when I was in prison, it was as if someone had died, only they hadn't. He said that all my things were here, but I wasn't. So it was that constant void of not having someone, your helpmate, your spouse, the person that's supposed to be your daily life person. And so being home with him has took a huge load off of his responsibilities. Mind you, our children are now grown. All 3 of our sons are grown. The youngest is 22 and the oldest is 30. So my situation's a little different, but I have been home for 3 years, roughly. This year will make 3. And I think that he had a lot piled on him when I had to self-surrender to prison. And so I guess my second chance with my family would also mean that me, as the mother, as you well know, is always the nurturer usually of the family. I'm here to do those nurturing things again. My family was used to certain holiday meals I cooked, just little things like the treats I cooked for them every holiday at Christmas, especially. And while I know and I saw them making new traditions while in my absence, that they, could still have some sort of family gathering, and they made it work. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the same as having that person that's the gift giver, the one that buys, the one that does all the shopping, the one that does certain tasks in your family. Mm-hmm. So those things were missing. And as I stated earlier, I did miss some monumental events in my family's life. And honestly, when I first got home, I felt like for a while I lived on the outside of my family because they would talk about things and I had absolutely no memory of those. Like I was clearly in the dark. I mean, I knew what my husband maybe told me when he came to visit, or, and mind you, I was 8 hours away. Women are notoriously housed further than men are from home. And so I was a long drive. And so I only got to see my children a few times during the time I was in prison. Now, my husband, he was a godsend. He came every 4 to 6 weeks and sit in hard visiting chairs and, ate terrible food out of vending machines and had to be watched by guards the whole time and, go through the check-in process. But, my children only went through that a few times because I lived so, I was so far from where we lived. In fact, my one son lived in New York at the time, the oldest. So, my second chance to my family means that we're living our life again. Our life is complete. And honestly, my family means everything to me.
Oh, so sweet. Well, they're lucky to have you back. Okay, Marlon, how about
me? They've been a great support system.
I bet. Okay, Marlon, how about you? I saw you nodding your head. You can relate to some of that.
No, absolutely. And I would just start off, like, I remember like the first time my kids came to see me while I was incarcerated. And at the end of the visit, when my daughter realized
how old were they?
My daughter at the time was 6 years old and my son was 7, and I had a 3-year-old.
Oh gosh,
So when my daughter realized that I wasn't leaving with her, I still remember like how she started crying because it was hard for her to understand like why I wasn't leaving with them. And since I've been home, like I've been able to drive and see football games because two of my oldest kids lived in Iowa. They still live in Iowa. So I was able to go to different football games and to see my daughter as a cheerleader, to see her on track, and to have those opportunities to really rebuild with my children has really meant a lot to me and them.
Yeah.
And it's been a learning process, like for all of us. Like we've had to relearn each other, and having access to like just being able to pick up the phone. And my daughter calls me now, like when she just enrolled in school and started a new job, and being able to just say, congratulations, I love you. And to encourage my children has been a blessing. Yeah. I would also say just being able, one of the things that I had to do prior to my release from incarceration was to forgive my father and really learn to love him for who he was, which is my dad, and really sort of like just accept him for who he was. Like he wasn't the best father to me growing up, but I was able to forgive him and to begin to really build a new relationship with him. And to the point that my father passed away a couple of years ago, but he appointed me the executor over his estate. So we had rebuilt our relationship to where my father trusted me enough to say, I'm going to appoint my son to carry out my last wishes.
Wow.
And just there's even just having like those family events, like during like Christmas time and New Year's was like the hardest time for me during incarceration. And so for me, like I'm the person in the house that's going to climb up on the roof and hang up Christmas lights and make sure that we have decorations throughout the house, because I love Christmas time. Like I love just the holiday season in general, because it's about family and being around family.
Yeah.
And so I would say what this second chance has meant to my family is having Marlon back, their father back, their uncle back, and a nephew back, and being able to be in the process of just like normal family stuff. And like Lynn, family to me is everything. And because of all of the family members that I lost while I was incarcerated, like that sort of like amplified just the investment that I make in really spending time with my family now.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to do with your kids or one of your kids?
So I love to go out to eat for breakfast, and so one of my favorite
So do
things.
I.
Yep, just to go out one-on-one and to eat breakfast and just to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marlon, did you have, do you feel that you were very traumatized when you got home? Did it take you, I was a little taken aback and surprised at how much anxiety and I would say PTSD and just traumatization I had when I first got home, that my home that I had lived in for many years almost didn't feel like my home, and you feel like you really, everything just felt so weird and just out of place. I remember the first day that my husband picked me up at Oklahoma, we went by Walmart and I said, I have to get out of here. I can't do this. I can't even pick out a lotion. There's so many choices and I don't even know how to pick one. And I just remember the anxiety, that feeling of just like my whole body felt like it was buzzing from anxiety. It was really, I didn't expect to feel that way, I guess.
No, absolutely. I definitely had the same experience. The halfway house, they took us to Kmart, and just the amount of selections of toothpaste like gave me anxiety because I didn't know. I wasn't used to like having to pick from so many different brands. So I definitely shared that anxiety, but I'm thankful because my family was very patient and supportive. And so throughout the process, they just supported me and they were patient with me and they explained like stuff that like I didn't know how to buy a transfer. So my family was just patient and really sort of walked me throughout the process until I was comfortable and felt like I had been reacclimated back into society.
So talking to you both, go ahead.
I'm 3 years almost post incarceration and, or being home. I mean, I was on the CARES Act for 8 months before I got compassionate release, but, I'm just now kind of feeling like myself again. And so, I always encourage families and people that are coming home, returning citizens, that you've got to give yourself a lot of time and a lot of grace and mercy because I was fortunate like you. My family was tried to be understanding because, I would just start, my anxiety would get the better of me. And sometimes I would just start, feeling like a crazy person. And, I have the mental health background, the training. So even with that, I could still, feel all that going on inside of me. And, my husband and I, we kind of had to learn who I am now in a way, because I really am not the person that left because of things that I witnessed, went through, saw, flying on Con Air, for instance, that was that was a crazy experience and it was traumatizing. So I always like to tell families when I have the opportunity to, just give each other a lot of grace and mercy. And it takes time. It's not something, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is returning from prison. And sometimes it takes people a lot longer. But I think if you have a good support system, like both of us, I believe from talking, hearing what you said, you had one too. I think if your family is supportive, I think the process goes better. But I definitely encourage people, get therapy. There's no shame in the game of getting therapy.
Yeah. Good advice. Good advice. Well, it's both of you talking. It's just like incredible to imagine you, still in prison. I know both of your sentences would be up by now, but still. So just a little math exercise. Marlon, pick one of your kids or all of your kids. And so how old were they? Let's pick the 3-year-old. So the 3-year-old was 3 when you went in.
Mm-hmm.
How old was she or he when you got out?
So
when you got your second chance?
So my daughter was 16, my son was 17, and D'Angelo was 13 when I came home. And they
right,
were
so the 3-year-old was 13. And so if you had done your whole time flat, he would be 23 when you got so he had a father from 13 to 23. Just a kind of important time to have a father. So
absolutely.
I mean, just that alone, like the impact of your second chance on that one kid, those terrible years from 13 to 23. Imagine how different maybe he wouldn't, but you'd have to, something would be different in that 23-year-old.
Those are formative years.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So the last question is, how, and again, think about, put yourself in other shoes. How has your second chance helped your community? Lynn, you're in Arkansas. Marlon, you're in Chicago. But even, you can even talk about your neighborhood or your church community or your work community, but, beyond your family, how has your second chance, what has it meant to your community? Lynn, why don't you start?
Well, it means that I'm now back in my community being a productive member of society, and I'm able to volunteer my time. For instance, I went to trial, and in February of 2017, I lost. And a few weeks after that, my pastors at my church asked my husband and I to lead up a project called Share Your Lunch. That project gives grocery bags of groceries weekly to people that are hungry. And it also sends backpacks home for children that may not have food on the weekends. And I was like, I'm not the person to lead this up. Like, I'm probably going to self-surrender to prison in a couple of months. I was just found guilty at trial. And, after a lot of prayer and talking with my pastors, we decided, okay, I'm going to take this on anyway. It's funny because God certainly had another plan. And on February the 25th, 2018, Share Your Lunch celebrated our 1-year mark. The following day, on Monday, February the 26th, 2018, I self-surrendered to FPC Bryan. So let that sink in. I made it through an entire year that first year. And at the time, we'd given out a little over 4,000 bags, I believe, of groceries. Fast forward, my husband, stayed with the project while I was gone. And we are now up to over 22,000 bags of groceries. I jumped right back in when I got home, and I've been helping with that project weekly. I also volunteer with the homeless in my community. I always have, and I still have a heart for the homeless. As I told you before, I have a heart for helping those, not only those left behind in prison, but also their families. I run a few Facebook groups that are designed for families and also for returning citizens to get information and help and just to vent whatever they need. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, from the very bottom of my soul, I truly believe that God actually allowed me on this very journey, the journey that I didn't want to take when I self-surrendered to prison, for the reason of sitting here like this today, being an advocate, to be a voice and to be a helpmate to others, and, to share my journey with those who now find themselves on a similar journey. So to me, for my community and for me, my second chance has allowed me to give help and hope to others. Mm-hmm. And I thank God for that second chance. And I believe truthfully that every person deserves a second chance. Mm-hmm. And I want to see more people get second chances.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's also interesting, Lynn, though, but because I find myself wondering, well, if she hadn't gotten compassionate release and she'd done her whole time, I bet you still would be doing all this stuff. But the fact that you got compassionate release, that's a great model for people to still have hope. Absolutely. You can't, compassionate release is there, and here's how you get it, or here's how you apply for it. Here's how you try to get it. So the fact that because I have a feeling, even if you did 25 years in prison, you'd come out and you'd be given grocery bags to the hungry. Maybe not, but you're really an astonishing person. But I think your community is definitely better off for you. That's just amazing. Marlon, how about you?
So what my second chance has meant to my community, I would go back to the passing of the Fair Sentencing Act. That was also the beginning for me in really discovering that I had a passion for community organizing and understanding like the importance of people like myself being at the table when policy is developed and implemented. And so, I mean, from the day that I got out, like I connected to an organization that was working with churches across the state of Illinois, and together we worked to pass over, I believe, 15 bills that removed barriers or created opportunities for people with records.
Wow.
And again, I would just say, like just the community that I grew up in, it was rare for you to hear someone like me to like talk about policy or understanding like the different levels of government and how you introduce legislation or ordinance. And so like just me being able to go back to my community now and talk about my experience, but then also encourage other men and women like myself to get involved in this work has been a blessing. And really being in a position where we have some resources to where if people want to travel to Springfield to lobby legislators, that we're able to give individuals that opportunity. And then just being there. Like I remember when I first started organizing, I used to think that I had to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Like I have to be able to give people all of the answers. And what I learned through community organizing was my job was just to get people to show up. And that's when the learning would happen. And so when people would show up at the Capitol, a lot of people would say, man, I didn't know that I could talk to legislators about things that impact my community and that I could talk to them about solutions. And then we would debrief like how that made them feel. And then there are some individuals who are still working alongside of me from just that experience.
Wow.
And so just being in a position and following that path, like I truly believe, like Lynn, like God knew what he was doing when he allowed me to go to prison and to have that experience and to connect to fam. And all of these things were not by accident. And so I came out and just really stayed on that path of saying, how can I now give back to the community and walk alongside my community as we work towards solutions? And that's the goal. That's my calling in life. That's what I've been doing since I've been out. And that's been what I believe is the, like what my second chance sort of means to community.
Okay, so I'm going to just push you a little bit because I'm really into stories. Can you think of a story, Marlon, that like maybe something that happened really recently about, well, you kind of just told one about that person who told you that, but something happened really recently that made you feel like, man, wow, that's amazing that what I did or said or didn't do made XYZ happen to this guy.
Yeah. So it's funny because he's now on staff with me, but a good friend of mine, Harry Pena, he was a part of our coalition, and I had never met Harry. And we were planning a lobby day in the Capitol here in Springfield. And Harry showed up the day before. He had reserved a room at the hotel. And he texted me. He had somehow got my number from someone else from the coalition. And he texted me and he said, Marlon, I'm here in Springfield. Like, can we grab a cup of coffee? I just want to talk to you about like what the lobby day is going to look like. And we sat down and he said to me, he said, Marlon, this is what I want to do. He said, like, I feel so empowered just being here and knowing that like where I come from, that we're here to sort of talk to legislators to introduce legislation that will remove a barrier. And a few months later, Harry, we had an opportunity where a position was available and he applied for that position. And he's now our coalition manager, actually managing the coalition and doing the exact same job that I was doing at the time, trying to recruit people to come down. And so he's now in that same role. And so when every now and then we'll talk about how he sort of spoke this into existence. He said, this is what I want to do. And then there was an opportunity and we were able to hire him.
Yeah, that's great. Way to go, Harry.
Marlon, I sit on the Federal Advisory Council for Dream Justice currently, and some of the same things you're saying about policy, I think I I took my experience from learning BOP policy and using that to help people and myself while, serving time in prison. And now I've taken that and hopefully can use it in the next level of this journey to be a force behind some legislation. I mean, that is my goal. My goal is to speak before Congress, to be able to tell our stories and to, impress upon the people, the powers that be, why there needs to be these changes and why things like the Equal Act should be passed and, other legislation that may be coming up. Because, like I said, everybody deserves their second chance, and there's just not enough of them out there. And I think there needs to be some new legislation put into place so that more people get the opportunity to do the exact thing that we're talking about in this broadcast. And, I pray that we see that coming in the next year. I do. I pray 2023 is the year for some reform issues to be passed.
Well, Marlon, I wanted to ask you too, back to doing a little math. So if you got out at 10 years, almost 11 years, I wonder have you ever thought like, wow, if I did 20 years, would I be doing the same thing I'm doing today? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I would say yes, because even when I was arrested, I had been a fugitive for almost 2 years. And so that was the worst time of my life. Like, I was really ready to start over, but I just didn't know how. And so even going into the system, like, I was committed that, like, I'm not coming out the same. And so I really had told myself, like, if I'm going to come out at 43 or 44 years old, I'm going to come out the smartest person on the earth. Like, I went in with that mindset. So even if I had to serve all of my time, like, I still would be involved in this work, just maybe in a different capacity, just because of the time frame, but I would still be involved in this work.
And all the stuff you've done in the 10 years you've been out, that wouldn't have been done.
Absolutely.
So it's remarkable. Okay, so we just got a few minutes left, about 3-4 minutes left. So just a few closing thoughts from each of you. Anything sort of left unsaid that you'd like to say? Lynn, how about you?
Okay. I'll just say to people that may be out there struggling with, the fact that they are freshly out of prison, they've committed a crime, or even to the ones that are sitting, waiting, maybe possibly to go in, they're under indictment. Don't give up. There's still a plan for your life, and you're still, able to be a member of society. You're still able to do what God has in store for you. And I think that never give up on yourself. Go in with an attitude of, like Marlon said, I'm going to make changes. I'm going to do the best I can to be a better me. Reinvent yourself into something. And, just know that you're valuable. You're worthy. You are still someone that has a lot to contribute to society. So just keep that in mind through this journey, and know that you still got purpose in this life. It's not too late.
That's great. That's a great message. That's a really great message. Do you have anything also to say to families who are watching?
Yes, I think your job might be harder than the prisoners, because I give it to families that support those on the inside. I had a great support system with friends, family traveling to see me, like I said, 8 hours away. It makes a huge difference. So do what you can to support your loved one, and just know that people are not the mistakes they make. It's what they do with those mistakes that matter. So never give up. And I know it's hard. It's a hard journey. It's a journey none of us want to be on. And that goes for the family as well. But there are support groups out there. There are people that care. There are people that want to be there for you. Reach out. Don't feel like that. Even if you have to post anonymously on a page, reach out, because there are people that will help you and try to answer your questions. And, this journey is a hard journey. No one's saying it's going to be easy. However, you will get through it. And there usually for most of us, there is an ending date. I know some families aren't as lucky to have that, but you know, most of the population in prison, at some point, that person is going to be released. So you're going to have an ending date to this, and it honestly comes quicker than you think.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Good, wise words. How about you, Marlon?
So a good friend of mine likes to say that my story didn't start at the point of my incarceration, and it certainly didn't end there. And so as we think about expanding second chance opportunities, whether it's through clemency or sentencing reduction, I would just say in order for us to get to the root of what happens in people's lives, we have to look at some of the issues that are impacting communities. And then also like give folks an opportunity to show that that was just a comma. Like my time of incarceration was just a comma and it wasn't a period. And so instead of creating barriers for people as they transition out, let's think about how we can create opportunities to support people to stay out. And to me, in my incarceration, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was innocent, but I didn't deserve the amount of time that I was given. And I was ready to come home year 2, year 3. I was ready to come home. And so I would just say, think about that comma, and give people an opportunity to show you something different. And let's create policy that supports the opposite end of the recidivism rate. The people who have come out and have found ways and methods and vehicles to stay out. Let's amplify those to give people a real opportunity.
I love that. I love that. And what would you say to families?
I would say be patient with individuals that are coming out of incarceration. Like Lynn said, I take my hat off to families that are supporting individuals that are incarcerated, because it's almost like they're serving time with you. And Absolutely. So I would say we definitely appreciate that support. Be patient, plug into networks like FAM and local community organizations that can help you also become an advocate, because it helps.
That's great advice. And I love, it was just a comma. Okay. Well, again, thank you both so much. Your second chance. I can't imagine what the world would be like really if you hadn't gotten your second chances. You're just so good at everything you do. And FAM is really lucky to have you on our team. And we wish you just the best of luck with everything. And you know, I hope we'll see a lot more of you, and we can't wait to follow what you're doing next. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate FAM a lot.
Good.